Your headline of your coverage of the NFL, Walt Anderson sending out a video of what players can and cannot do to avoid being in the zone of making a referee call you for a taunt or a posture. It was perfect. Like, players not being able to contain themselves emotionally, that the NFL is backing the play of players needing to contain themselves emotionally, their basic human emotions. Like, why is the NFL just going further and further to a point where even on Dan's show, which is between yours and mine every day on Peacock, Sean Payton, who's on the competition committee, says they're over officiating. That what's happening on the field isn't even remotely close to what they were talking about in the meetings. Why are they doing that?
Well, I don't get it. Rich McKay, the chair of the competition committee, when they announced the latest point of emphasis on taunting, they did this in 2014, and they did it again this year. He made it clear that they want to get rid of the in-your-face jawing between players who then may have a vendetta that gets acted out upon later, either through a fight or through an effort to go take a shot at a guy, a legal shot, but a gratuitous, unnecessary shot at a guy during a play. They don't want to have a guy keeping score, I'll get this guy. That's what they're trying to avoid. At some point, it morphed into this broader concern about posturing toward an entire sideline, and that was the Cassius Marsh thing. And see, when you're not wired or willing to admit a mistake and you double down, number one, you create a bunch of criticism, and frankly, I think the league liked the focus on the Cassius Marsh thing because it took away emphasis from the ridiculous low block call that took a touchdown off the board that same night, and I've been told that that's true, that they love that distraction because that was an indefensible call by Tony Corrente. But now you've got this posturing standard. And I've already got coaches sending me examples of similar conduct that isn't flagged. See, how are you going to call this consistently? That's the separate issue, whether we agree with the rule or not, and most people don't, at least especially how it's being applied in some cases. Now, if you're not applying it and enforcing it consistently, that's a problem because then it all seems too subjective. It seems random. It seems like, we just pull the flag out when we feel like it. And the NFL needs to be concerned about that because you don't want to give people any plausible basis to think that the fix is in. And I firmly believe the fix is never in, but I also would prefer that people don't have a plausible argument that the fix could be in. I don't like that. And they need to be as vigilant as they can. If they're going to enforce this rule, they've got to enforce it all the time, and they've got to enforce it consistently, or it is going to create these situations where people are like, something fishy is going on here.
So what? But who's the one pushing it now? Now, like, I understand before it was, John Mara representing ownership and Rich McKay representing upper management and Tomlin and Payton and whoever else is on that committee representing coaches. And there was a coaching committee that actually forwarded it to the competition committee. I understand how it was born, but why are we seeing it now like this? Like, who's sitting there saying, let's back Corrente? And I understand you say they're covering up for other calls, and that's just in the here and now. I mean, that's just between weeks 9 and 10, right? Just to get to game action in week 10 to change a narrative or what have you. But why send out this video from Walt Anderson to everybody, basically, again, putting it in the lap of the players? We're already telling a player that, hit the proper strike zone during the game, even though the person that you're hitting changes his body position. That might make you hit a part of the strike zone you weren't intending to hit. We're already laying that on the players. Why are we now saying don't put us in the position of making the stupid call of having somebody wordlessly posture at a sideline as a taunt? Why? Who's doing that?
Well, I think here's the reality. There's a combination of personalities and mindsets in the league office and the people who actually have the ear of the commissioner. And once you start down the path of defending bad calls whenever and however you can, minimal transparency, long gone are the days of the Dean Blandinos and the Mike Pereiras who could appear on NFL Network's Total Access and explain and admit when maybe a referee went a little bit too far. You never get that now. You get, if anything, and we've seen him each of the past 2 weeks, Perry Fewell, who works with the officiating function now, will do an 80-second video where he just says, here's the call, and here's why it was made, and here's why it was right, and you move on to the next one. There's no acknowledgement of mistake, and I think this thing that went out this past week with the memo and the video is a product of this effort to defend the Corrente call, back up this standard, and put it all on the players. This is it. Hey, we don't want to have to do this. We don't want to have to turn this car around. This is going to hurt us more than it hurts you. Any other cliche you want to throw in there, it's your fault if we do it. It's not our fault for being overly officious.
Right.
You're on notice of what you need to avoid. And, the reality is you're going to see, the coaches who understand the linear connection between 15 yards of field position and winning and losing games like Bill Belichick, making sure his guys understand that you may not like it, but you got to understand it and you got to control yourself just like you have to control yourself when it comes to holding or any other foul that could be called against a player.
Same thing as just don't reach for the pylon. Some teams do it, some teams don't, and it's, I guess, the latest example of that because you don't want to run afoul of the rule book. I just don't like, again, it's like taking the targeting rule and applying it to celebrations. And that's when you're going to get, as you've pointed out, some inconsistency in actually calling it. And I don't understand why they want to go in that direction. I don't understand. It would have been very simple as saying, we of course, we don't want somebody wordlessly staring at a sideline on Monday Night Football with 3 minutes to go in a game costing anything like that. Of course, that's not what we want. We want everybody just to tone it down.
Hey, Sim said on PFT Live the day after that game, how do we know that the guy's mom wasn't in the front row? And he was saying, look, Ma, look at me, Ma, look what I did. We are inferring meaning from someone's bodily motions, and it's one thing if you've got two guys who are right in each other's faces. Then you know it when you see it.
Right.
I think that's what makes it a little more difficult. We're applying the Potter-Stewart standard in situations where you're making some assumptions that may not be warranted, and how do you know for sure that that's what that guy was doing? And how is that going to set the stage for further issues? If the whole thing is we want to nip in the bud any possibility of either extracurricular stuff or permissible from snap to whistle hits that are born of this desire to get back at a guy, if that's the goal, why are you saying you can't posture an entire sideline? I mean, logically the whole thing continues to collapse, but they're not going to admit they were wrong. So they're going to, as we said, they're going to make sure the players know what the rule is and expect the coaches to coach it that way. And if you get flagged, it's your own fault. It's not our fault.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.